Today's video is another vlog of me just talking about, this one's a heavy topic, but it's something very important, something that I think should be talked about more than it is, and I just want to create like a safe space and just make sure people know that it's okay. I guess before I go into it, I'm gonna give a little disclaimer. It is, like I said, a heavy topic, so if you think you're gonna be triggered, obviously you saw the title of the video, but if you think you're gonna be triggered, if you think it's gonna be something that's too hard for you to like have to listen about, then by all means it's okay for you not to watch the video. Thank you for trying. But yeah, just wanted to say it's a heavy topic, but it's an important one to have. It's important to have a conversation about it, and I know that maybe there could be people that say, okay, well, what do you know about this besides the fact that maybe you are a mom? Like, mental health and depression are something that thankfully I've never been diagnosed with depression, and I don't think I've ever been like truly depressed in a way where it could be diagnosed and I could either potentially take medication or whatever. I've definitely had my moments, as anyone has. I can't sit here and say or talk about depression or any sort of like mental health issue fully by saying, oh, well, I know how it is, because I don't. I've only studied it, and I've only seen people go through it, and I can only give you snippets of what I've gone through, but also know that I'm not also just kind of like a random person who thinks she knows what she's talking about. Like I said, I've studied it. I'm a psychology major. I plan on going to grad school for social work to get a mental health and counseling license. So hopefully I can become a therapist. I don't know why I laughed. So just don't think that I don't know what I'm talking about, because I've definitely studied it, and I by all means don't want to come off as like some just know-it-all. I'm literally just trying to start a conversation and talk about my experience. That could be way different than somebody else's. Obviously not everyone's gonna go through the same thing. Some people, let me just say this also, some people go through things and it can feel like the end of the world to them, but to another person they could be like, that's nothing. Like, yeah, that sucks, but there's so many more other people that have it worse. And although that might be true to a certain extent, it still feels really heavy to the person that's going through it. So let's just keep in mind that everybody has their own battles that they have to go through, and it's not something that's just, oh, that's not that bad, get over it. It's difficult for everybody. So yeah, that's another disclaimer. I want to talk about postpartum depression and how it affects women. Postpartum depression is serious. It's legit. Depression is not just some like crazy people thing. I know that there's a lot of people for example, in Mexico, like they're just really closed-minded about depression, and that's nothing wrong against them. It's just they're not educated on the topic. Depression is a real thing. It's something that you need to talk about, and to a certain extent you have to make sure that you're getting professional help. If you're not able to just get yourself out of that situation, you have to talk to a professional about it, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Just because you have depression doesn't mean that you're crazy, or it doesn't mean that, you know, you're an odd person out or something. So I just want to get that clear. With postpartum depression, every single mother is going to go through it in some way, shape, or form. I remember when I was at the hospital, they made me go through this like questionnaire where they asked me about my feelings, and it was kind of like, I think about harming myself often, not often, daily, like things like that. And you know, I had to answer it, and based on that answer it would say whether or not I was severely depressed or had severe postpartum depression or if I didn't. There are some women that are so severely affected by this postpartum depression that they have to go to a psychiatric center, and I just want to make sure that it is known that you are not crazy. Nothing is wrong with you. It's just the changes that we as women have to go through, not only with our body, but mentally, emotionally. It's a lot for some people to take on. And just, yes, it's 9 months leading up to it, but it honestly feels like your life changes like that as soon as the baby's born. And it is a huge blessing. But at the same time, once you become a parent, nothing is the same. Absolutely nothing. Your life changes completely. 100% your life changes. It's not going to be the way it used to be before. You know, for some women, it's really hard to grasp, and it's okay. I know for me, at the beginning, I was kind of scared because I had heard stories of women who were like super depressed and they just isolated themselves and they couldn't connect with their babies, or they were blaming their babies for the way they felt. And you know, that sounds horrible, but that's just the way your mind forces you to think, and you just can't really you're just clogged with all these emotions. And I was super afraid that that was going to happen to me. I didn't talk to anyone about it, but I was honestly horribly afraid that I was just going to be severely depressed once I had my baby, especially because I'm so young and not very many of the people that I grew up with or the people around me, my friends, are going through the same thing that I'm going through. And so I was just like, this is going to hit me hard and I don't know if I can handle it. I didn't tell anyone because I was like, why would I want to worry people when I'm okay right now? It's just my worries that are getting the best of me. And then when I had my son and I was going through that test, I found myself getting a perfect, not a perfect score, but a score that showed I had no depression. And I was like, oh, okay, this is fine. I'm okay. This is perfectly okay. I know for other women, that's not the case. It's whenever you take that test, they just feel all these emotions, and it's just different for everyone. For me, I just didn't feel depressed. I felt fine. It wasn't until, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 months later that I started to feel kind of weird. It started to hit me how different my life is, and just, for example, being at school and constantly being surrounded by, I go to an all-girls school, so constantly being surrounded by girls who were just like, oh yeah, I went to this party yesterday, or I'm going to the bar this weekend, or yeah, we're gonna go back to my dorm room and do this and that. And I just sit there and I think, I have a huge blessing at home, which is my son, but I can never be a normal college student. Sometimes my friends will come home from their colleges and they'll be like, hey, we should go do this and that. And I'll be like, okay, but can we do it before 8, but after 2, because that's the only time frame that I have. Is that okay? Or then I'll end up having to bring my son, and they don't mind whatsoever, but it's not the same. And sometimes it's just really hard for me to fully grasp that my life has completely changed. You know, I go to my counselor at school, and I've met with a counselor outside of school, and they've been really helpful, but I think it's important to remember that it's okay to go through those emotions or those spots where you're just kind of not feeling the greatest. And if you feel like you don't really have a connection with your child, that's something that you need to talk about with a professional, but also just understand that it's okay and it's not going to be a forever type of feeling that you have. I wanted to take the time and make this video because I think it's important to talk about. It's important for people to know that postpartum depression is real. For some women, it'll hit harder. And before I continue, I just remembered this, I think it was a post I saw. It was this woman who was like, explaining how postpartum depression hit her, and it was so spot on that it honestly freaked me out, and I started crying when I read it because I was like, this is so true. I think for a lot of women it hits you at certain different points where you're just like, you're at home with your child and you're enjoying it, but then you sit here and you're like, I just need a day, even just an afternoon, to go out and not have to be inside the house, either cleaning or taking care of our kid or kids, or, you know, having to deal with work or school. I just need an afternoon to myself. Sometimes it could be either with friends or just literally to yourself. It gets rough because you don't have that opportunity to do that. But then the opportunity does come and you're out, and while you're out, you sit there and you feel guilty because you're not at home with your baby. So, say for example, my mom's like, hey, I'm gonna watch Sebastian. You can go out and go to the mall or do whatever it is you need to do. Go get your nails done, whatever. And I'll do that, and I'll literally be sitting there just like, what am I doing? It's not my mom's responsibility to be taking care of my son. Why am I out? Like, there are plenty of other times that I've had fun with my friends or had fun doing my nails or whatever. I need to be at home with my baby. Or then sometimes his dad will come take care of him, and I'll just start thinking like, oh my gosh, his dad doesn't know this or that. I didn't tell him this. What if he falls? Like, what if they fall? What if something happens? Or even worse, if you just leave Sebastian with somebody that's not like his immediate family, and I'm out and I'm like, oh my God, like, they don't know what this or that is. They don't know him. Like, what if they get hurt? What if... It's just a whole bunch of like what ifs that go through your mind, and you feel guilty when you're not there, but then when you are there, you're like, I need time for myself. And it's so difficult. It's this like constant battle of like just wishing, oh, I wish somebody could just take care of him for like 30 minutes so I could just go take a shower and be able to shave and just like exfoliate and just, you know, pamper myself for 30 minutes. And you're like, oh, I wish somebody would just be like, oh, hey, don't worry, I'll take care of him for 30 minutes. You go take a shower. But then at the same time, you don't want them to burden themselves watching him because he's your responsibility. And it's just like literally going back and forth between yourself, like, I need this, I don't need this, I need this, I feel guilty, I need this, but he needs me. Like, it's just this constant tug of war. And then don't even get me started about how many times my friends have asked me to hang out, and I'll be like, yeah, for sure. And then it'll get to it, and I'm just literally not in the mood. Not even me thinking guilty or like feeling guilty or anything. It's just me not being in the mood, and I'll just be like, hey, I really don't feel like it, or I'll come up with something, and I'll just be like, I can't. It's like, I feel like that's what postpartum depression is, where you just like, it's so hard to get used to this new lifestyle. That it's something that I'm like still struggling with, but you know, it's important to talk about. And I feel like a lot of mothers realize it too late that they could have spoken to someone or even spoken to their significant other and said, this is how I feel. I need you to just give me nudges when you see that I literally need time for myself, but I don't want to give myself that time. I had this conversation with my boyfriend, and I was like, honestly, I need times where you just watch him, but I'm not gonna want you to watch him, but you just need to like basically force me to just have my free time. And he's done that. He's great about that. It's just so difficult, but you have to make sure to have a conversation with the people that you're surrounded by, or make sure to get professional help and seek out a counselor. Honestly, I've heard so many like negative things about therapists from people that have never gone to a therapist, and it just blows my mind, because how can you speak negatively about something that you've never experienced? And sure, there can be many horrible therapists out there, but as soon as you go and give it a try, and if you find one that really like connects with you and that you feel like you can talk to freely without any like type of wall up, then that's great. Because honestly, talking about your feelings and talking about what you need, talking about yourself, for once as a mom, I know for me, I don't normally talk about myself. I used to talk about myself all the time, but recently in the past like 2 years, I don't really vent to very many people anymore, and going to a therapist was my time to just like talk for an hour completely about whatever I wanted to talk about, whatever I needed to talk about. And it felt so great to be able to do that. And I just think more people need to take up that opportunity to just speak with someone. And I know therapy is expensive, so not everyone can afford it. But if you have the resources and if you look for people that are willing to talk to you, it doesn't even have to be a therapist. I know people in my family would much rather go speak to a priest than to a therapist, and that's perfectly fine as long as you just talk about your emotions with somebody else. Don't just keep everything bolted inside. It is so much better once you start talking about your emotions and you like just let everything go, that you're gonna feel so much better and you're gonna start healing and just realizing that it's okay to want time for yourself, but it's also okay to feel like you need to stay with your child, because especially when kids are so young, they don't know anything but you, their mother or their father, and it's completely okay to just want to just be with your baby, but also it's okay to want to have free time, and it is definitely okay to take some free time. I want to make sure that that's out there, that, you know, it's okay to talk. You, by all means, if you're watching this and you feel like you've gone through it or going through it, you are definitely not alone. Although maybe your experience or personal experience might not be the exact same as somebody else's. And overall, in the grand scheme of things, postpartum depression I think it affects every single mother in one way or another. And it's okay to acknowledge that. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to be okay with it and to just embrace it. Just continue being the damn greatest mom that you can be. I'm gonna leave a whole bunch of resources that I find. I'm gonna do some research. I'm gonna leave them in the description box. If you are feeling an extreme form of depression or any other type of mental health issue, please get help. Speak to someone. If you don't want to speak to someone professionally, speak to your best friend, to your parents, to your grandparents, to your neighbor. Speak to someone that you rely on. It's okay. And I cannot stress enough, if you are contemplating suicide, I know it's such a cliche thing to say, but suicide is just a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Your life is valuable. You matter. You are loved by people even if you don't feel that way. You are on the earth for a reason. And even if it doesn't seem like it, you are cared for. And it's important that you know that, and it's important that you love yourself. And if you are not feeling okay, it's important that you realize that it's okay to get help. So I'm gonna also leave the hotline for suicide, and just know that I'm praying for everyone who is going through rough times. Let's just end the stigma on mental health and move forward. Love yourself. Be kind to people. Please, for God's sake, be kind to people. Be there for people if they come to you about their mental health. Don't take it lightly. Maybe to you it might seem like, oh no, he can't be depressed. Especially if it's a family member, you're like, no, that can't be. But to them, it's probably very serious. Don't take it lightly. And just be there to help. Love yourself. Be kind. Bye.